Y'all faked me out. Game started looking good. Ended Raptors 121-102. New York City, let's talk some real basketball. This is New York City. And I'm not talking about the current hyper corporate, hyper gentrified New York City. This is The Front Office is a podcast that is run by a genuine article New York City cat, and I don't mean to say that in a way of being or some kind of fake tough guy. I'm a father, a husband. I'm married 20 years. You know, I got the house and the picket fence thing going. So don't get me wrong. There's nobody pretending to be, studio gangsters around here. But this is New York City, and in New York City we talk real. We don't sugarcoat things. We don't kowtow to the major corporation that moved on to Atlantic and Flatbush called the Brooklyn Nets. What I watched tonight, 121-102. The beginning of it, I gasped myself. I was like, I was wrong. Look at them. Kyries is back. The energy's back. The building is full. We back. But reality started hitting us real fast. Real ugly, too. Tonight I brought on a New York City legend. A cat. And I'm gonna tell you a funny story. I got a cousin. I'm not gonna tell his street name. I'm gonna use his government name. I have a cousin named Francois. Yes, that's about as Haitian of a name as you could get. And he came home from jail. He was like, cousin, you doing big things. I just got on Twitter. I see you talking to big people, and I'm like, he must see that, either Jay being my client or the fact that I still communicate with some artists from Bad Boy and from when Puff was my client. But no, he was like, you talking to the God in jail. Like, I was like, who are you talking about? If it's not who I thought it was, and it was like, yo, it's Sean Malcolm, the editor-in-chief of King Magazine. Like, you know him? And I was like, nah, man, I didn't even realize how I was speaking to a, hip hop publication legend, and Mr. Sean A. Malcolm. Sean, welcome to the front office, man. Come on in and talk to me, brother.
I appreciate being invited to the front office. Thank you for having me. Can I curse it?
Yeah, curse. We're not doing this for ads.
I just had to ask, that's the Brooklyn in me. But, some real shit between us always communicating on Twitter is good that we could, at least further the communication, talking, I guess you could say ear to ear over the phone or whatever. Hopefully one day we could just like link up in person. But it's a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Yo, before I start talking about tonight's game and where the team is at, where does your Nets fandom start? How'd you become a Nets fan?
Okay, so I'm gonna try to, go as quick as possible with this. Born in Brooklyn, born and raised. I grew up in a two-parent household. My father loved the Knicks because of Patrick Ewing. Because again, both my parents are from Jamaica.
Ah, yeah.
My mother just loved Jordan, and since I spent most of my time with my mom, during the 90s when the Bulls was killing it, like that was one of our bonding times. So she liked Jordan, I liked Jordan. So I grew up a Bulls fan. Then he retired, and then I wasn't gonna go back and I'm a Knicks fan now. I wasn't doing that. That's silly. That's stupid. Right. So I was just a fan of basketball. I just like teams and everything. From the Hornets, I loved LJ and Alonzo and that young squad that they were doing, doing it up in the early to mid '90s, and I liked a little bit of what I saw from the Nets, the Kenny Atkinson and Derek Coleman days.
Yeah,
I liked what I saw out there, but I wasn't really following them like that. I ain't gonna front. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I always say this, when Ratner bought the team in '06, and I read up on that in the paper, and it said he has all the plans on bringing the team to Brooklyn. I've been hooked ever since, because at the end of the day, you could say it's a funny thing, and you could ask any Brooklynite this: when you are anywhere in the world and you ask a Brooklynite, "Hey, where you from?" They say Brooklyn before New York. So I am a diehard. I bleed Brooklyn. So the fact that I get to see a team in my lifetime, because I study up on all sports history. I'm a Mets fan, and I know how they came about because of the Dodgers leaving.
Right.
How their colors are Dodger blue and New York Giants orange. That kind of stuff. Like, I am a diehard Brooklynite. And ironically, for those who really, really know about the history, Walter O'Malley, when he was trying to find a new stadium,
he was going to put it on Flatbush in Atlantic.
He was going to put it on Flatbush in Atlantic. So it's just full circle, I guess you could call it like that. But ever since Ratner bought the team, I was like, I'm following this team. So I've been rocking with this team ever since. I would go over the games in the swamp, and just watch all kinds of heartache. But I just had this. I was just like, I don't give a damn, because at least I have this team to call my own, because it's going to be in my hood. It's going to be where I grew up. You know what I mean? So
right.
By the time they touch base, had season tickets, everything, going broke, I don't give a damn. I'm just going. So I've just been a diehard fan since then.
Family, we kindred
so
spirits.
I'm not this fair weather fan. I'm not a gentrifier fan. I'm not none of that crap.
Same thing, man. I listen, like, I didn't, I wasn't alive with my grandfather very long. But the one thing that I would get out of him, he was a very stoic, very quiet older man, my grandpa Thomas. And his thing that he used to love to talk about was the Dodgers. And his understanding that he rooted for that team because it was a part of him, in the sense of it being from Brooklyn, and Brooklyn being a big part of his identity since moving up there to Bed-Stuy as a little boy from South Carolina. And my family's been here since the 1940s. And I'm not going to go against nothing with Brooklyn on the chest. And even if we go through hard times, 12 and 70 seasons, I wasn't a fan of them then. But I think the most harrowing and worst year of being a Brooklyn Nets fan is like if I lived through the Hollands and could you imagine that, a team that was finishing almost dead last in the league and didn't even have a draft pick, and watching Donald Sloan and Shane Larkin, like those was some horrible, like
you try, like we kind of drink the Kool-Aid a little bit, like we see glimpses, a little highlights of Shane Larkin busting it down, and like, you know what, he'll be serviceable. And then as the season progresses, you're like, what the fuck? Like,
right.
Is this funny? But like, that's why we're fans. We're shorthand for fanatic. Like, we kind of go a little bit delirious, trying to drink our own bullshit, thinking that we'll be all right. And right. I've suffered from this as well. I'm not going to front, and this season is a testament to that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But this is just who we are. Like, we're gonna ride and die. We're gonna ride and die for our team, regardless. We're gonna talk shit about them. That's just the nature of the business. That's the nature of the game. But dude, this season, I don't know, man. This is. I'm sorry, man. And I want to preface this by saying I didn't even watch this game, because I was like, you know what? I want to actually watch some sports and not get my blood pressure raised. So I just wanted to watch the football game, the Texans and the Bill game, which was like probably the most drunken playoff game I've seen since the Music City Miracle.
Yeah.
But that was an enjoyable game. I just didn't want to watch what I knew was going to happen. And when I kept looking through my feed and seeing what's happening, I was like, yes, second verse, same as the first. So,
well, you didn't miss anything. You pretty much called it from where you are. I mean, I think throughout the season, as we've talked on Twitter, I've noticed that you are, and that's the reason why I really wanted you to come on, is because you're one of the few people that's willing to see or say the unthinkable, which, you know, even I admit, even though I believe this, there is an argument to say that it is a little bit, how should I say, unfair to say that Kenny Atkinson must go. But in my heart of hearts, and it's great that we're talking about the Toronto Raptors game, because we get to talk about Masai Ujiri. The greatest thing Masai Ujiri did for the Toronto Raptors was fire the coach of the year and the guy who took him to the Eastern Conference Finals, and hire Nick Nurse, because he recognized, he's like, that's a good coach. He got us this far. It's going to seem crazy,
put us over the top,
but he's not the guy that's going to put us over the top. And I'm sorry, this earwax eating dude, Kenny Atkinson, is not. I just see it. He's not going to put us over the top. How do you feel about that?
Wait, before I get into that, I'm kind of on the fence about that analogy, because not only did he have to get rid of, I believe Casey to bring in Nurse, but he also had to get Kawhi as well. And I kind of liken it to, how do I say, like how everybody always bigs up John Gruden, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't really his squad when he won the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. That's Tony Dungy's squad.
Right.
He should get that ring. And you can make that same argument with the Warriors. That's not really Steve Kerr's team. That's Mark Jackson's team. He built them up to where they are. But I do understand that in all kinds of sports, you could only have someone take you so far, and you need either that coach or that player to get you over the hump. When it comes to Kenny Atkinson, I'm just foreseeing it.
Mm-hmm.
I just foresee it, because I've sat through games where they should be winning. I mean, where they should have won. There's no reason that we are 2 games under 500 right now. I'm sorry, even with a depleted roster. We've blown so many damn games, and part of it is because of coaching. His rotations are kind of sketchy. He leaves the hot hand in on the bench for too long.
Mm-hmm.
When opponents go on super duper runs, like for example, the Spurs, when they went on a monstrous, I think it was 18-0 run, and Kenny wouldn't even call a timeout, and apparently that happened here in this game. They went on a 12-0 run, and he couldn't call a quick timeout to cool everybody's jets. He doesn't do these things. No. And I just sit back and listen. I just sit back and watch this something. We should not be in the position we are. And this is why I've always said, and I've said this since last season. Hell, I said this during the playoffs when we were in Philly. Hell, I went down to Philly for game 1 and had to deal with all those damn Philadelphia fans. I was so happy we won, though. But still, I had to go down there, and we almost blew that game. I just feel that the wins that we do have, that we quote-unquote gut out, we win in spite of him, because the gutting out of games has probably come more than likely after we've blown a lead and we had to fall behind. And, the players had to be like, yo, fuck this. What the hell is going on? Last year at this time, right, we had D'Lo carrying the roster because Kyries went down and then Dinwiddie went down. And by the grace of God Almighty and an expiring contract, D'Lo pulled up the bootstraps and F this, I'm going to make this my team and I'm going to make it work. That worked for him. This season we have the same thing with Spencer. Spencer is on a tear right now. Mm-hmm. Nobody could tell me otherwise. If he does not make the All-Star team this season, it is a travesty against the league. It's a travesty against the whole voting system, blah, blah, blah. It's a travesty. He's pulling them up by the bootstraps, but they're still losing games, and it's because, I don't know, weird rotations. I'm sorry, I know I'm going all over the place, but this is reaction. I'm just reacting to everything because everything's coming. I'll just say this. when the duo of Kenny